what's up, everyone? Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. I'm here today with another client interview for you guys. Today, I'm excited to have Isabelle on with us. Isabelle just wrapped up her summer 2022. Well, not just. She's been done for a few months, but she finished her summer 2022 recruiting process. But we never got the chance to get together and kind of talk about her recruiting journey and experience until now. So I'm excited that we're finally able to do that. And she had a very successful recruiting process. And so I think she'll have a lot of things to share with you guys, which hopefully you guys can also use to benefit yourself as you go through the recruiting process as well. So Isabelle, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
No problem, Sam. Happy to. So I guess I can introduce a little bit about my background and then kind of what situation was I in. And then during the time that I was, with this program most actively. So I go to a top 10 non-target school. And then the finance, I would say, ecosystem at our school is very, very small, limited. Most of our people either exit to, graduate schools or they go further into academia. So when I first came to college, I really never really heard about banking, wanted to do something else. And then, but basically I heard about it by the end of my freshman year. And then around that time was when I was also listening to or talking to maybe some of the upperclassmen about, a career between banking or consulting. But in the end, I feel like, something that's more quantitative might be a better fit for me. So the main problem was it was in the midst of a summer. Second was I didn't really know a lot of people within my school's banking ecosystem. The third problem, which is a bigger thing, is our school practically on our career website, we have no connections to the street at all, or we have minimal connection, right? So networking for banking is such an important thing that I feel like I want something that is not just giving me any technical knowledge, but that gives me some sort of like a network that kind of supports me to go further and to help me with the recruiting process. So the biggest thing for me that kind of drew me to Sam's program was when we were talking and then he was introducing me about the program. He told me that, everybody is connected through a Facebook group. And then we're also connected by Slack. So, and that was like actually realized when I was doing my recruiting, because people within this program, they share about the recruiting news. So that especially helps with, I think everybody who comes from a non-target background, whereas your school's network isn't enough. I think the second thing that put me a lot at ease was how intuitive the technical program, especially, was for me to understand. Because our school, most other candidates, they have to, study everything starting with the 400 guide or other basic guides. There's no classes, and even our like accounting class is very, very basic. But I think Sam's program, not only helped me with the recruiting process, it also helped me to ace my school's financial statement analysis, and I even became TA for it. Yeah, like totally, seriously. Yeah. So I think, just it for someone, I think, who can acquire technical studies, the biggest upside of Sam's program is to save your time. And then for somebody who, even if you're struggling about networking, this group ultimately gives you a lot of access to a lot of information.
Yeah, that's a lot of really good stuff. I want to ask you some follow-up questions about some of the stuff that you said. So, I mean, when you came to us, I actually remember this because it was May 2nd. When you joined, it was May 2nd of 2020. May 2nd is my birthday. So you joined on my birthday. But I guess you were just wrapping up your freshman year then at the time, right? So pretty much it sounds like that was right when you realized you want to do banking. And did you like immediately decide like, hey, I need to go out and get some help because of the school that I go to? Or did you try to do a bunch of stuff on your own first, and then that didn't work, and then you decided to come to Wall Street Mastermind?
I think it was more with the first case, because as I said, there was kind of, well, my first of all, I think my intention of going to banking was more so to try it out to see if I like it, but it's something I know that's going to be very good on my resume. So the intention of me going there wasn't to really solidify kind of like a long-term career there, but rather to have it on my resume.
Yeah.
And then now, like, I feel like the more I learn about it, the more it really taught me a lot of things to look at, businesses. And I think that's something I'm glad that I tried it and it worked out.
Yeah.
But also because of that, I just, my goal was really just really trying to get into banking. And I knew that our school's resources aren't that much, but at the same time, like, it wasn't the first time that, Sam, you guys weren't the first agency that, like, I've talked to. There are a couple, other, I would just say, like, maybe even international recruiting, sort of education agencies that they were very, I think, aggressive, and then they try to, present you whatever, like, a lot of different ways of advertising it. But it often, I think, they weren't quite as tangible as Sam's program sounded to us. Like, in terms of how the program structure is broken down, and then what type of things, and even with the results as well. I think, like, when I was seeing other maybe testimonials of Sam's program, they were, like, very tangible as well. Like, I think this is not something other programs, they really hand it to you. So that's something really attracted me to Sam's.
That's interesting. I'm guessing these are, I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. These are some of the companies that come from Asia, right? And are named after a drink, maybe.
Yeah.
I won't name names, but I think on this is, I'm actually glad you brought this up, because I think from the outside looking in, for a lot of people, Wall Street Mastermind and some of these other programs out there, they seem kind of similar, right? At least, like, if you've never been in the program, we all kind of seem to offer the same things. Like, as you're doing your due diligence, which I'm all for everyone doing as much due diligence as they can, because I know the other program you're talking about is a lot more expensive than my program, but even then, like, my program's not a small investment, right? So it's like, obviously, if you're going to invest in something like this, you got to do your due diligence. Just like if you're going to buy a stock, you got to do your due diligence. Like, any investment you make, you got to make sure that it's a smart investment, right? So as you're doing your research, like, how do you distinguish between good programs from the not so good programs? Because there, let's be honest, in this day and age, there are a lot of really bad programs out there that just don't really work, right? And quite frankly, I really despise that, because it makes my job a lot harder, because a lot of times I get lumped in with them, right? Or, like, people online say, oh, this must be a scam or whatever. Obviously, our client results speak for themselves. Obviously, we have so many case studies and testimonials, but even then, people are still skeptical, right? So how do you sift through all the noise that's out there and just really, like, get you to a place where you feel confident, like, hey, yeah, this is a smart decision?
Yeah, I think maybe, like, if I have to look back to when I was picking, I treated it more of a, first, I think it's when you're looking into maybe some similar services, I think something I would look for, it's kind of as if you're trying to pick a mentor, but like a business mentor. So some of the things I think I value and I did see from Sam's program was, first, like, I think the entire, like, before I joined the program, versus if after I joined the program, I could tell, like, during the process of, like, I would say advertising, it was very transparent, because I think when I joined, my expectation weren't fell short. So that's the first thing. And second thing is also, like, something that my parent reminded me, or something that, like, now if I look at other, people telling me what they want to do, is you want to pick someone who was in the industry before. And then that's, like, perhaps, I think, a very standalone difference compared to some of the, agencies in Asia. Because they have a lot of, like, they would tell you to have a lot of mentors who are going to be, like, checking you in every single day. But in reality, if these people aren't even from banking, like, they might not even go to, like, the Big Four. They're just even, some of the college students, tutoring people on the side that are checking in for you on things. So that was just, like, very crazy to me. So, coming back to when we said, like, I think transparency, and then, like, when I was, before I enrolled in the program, I had chances to talk to Sam, and my parents had a chance to talk to Sam personally. I think that was, like, a very huge factor, because if I were to join, the firm that you mentioned, kind of like mentioned before, we're so irrelevant. Like, our unit is so small if you wanted to talk to somebody at the higher level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing was, I think during the program, if you want to chat with Sam at any time, he's always available there for you. Like, I didn't realize about this until like I actually tried it out a couple of times. So yeah.
Yeah. No, those are good points. I think, in other words, you touched on kind of two key criteria. One is, if you're going to pick a mentor, pick someone who's actually qualified to be your mentor, right? Not someone who's maybe your peer, or maybe, I don't know, 1 year older than you and is just knows like a little bit more than you. Like, they're not, you don't really want to put something as important as your career in the hands of someone like that, right? So that's the first thing,
Yeah.
qualification. But second thing is, and on the qualification piece, is tough, right? Like, I understand why they do that, but like, it's hard to get really qualified coaches who are means they've already worked in banking or maybe private equity. They're making the big bucks. Like, their full-time job is just not going to be to coach kids, and definitely not for like coach kids for I don't know, $20 an hour. Like, they don't need to do that, right? And so it's one, hard to find qualified people who are doing this, but two, the other thing you mentioned is like, how much attention are they actually going to give you, right? Because you can
Yeah.
find the most qualified person. You can go find, I don't know, the head of investment banking at some bank. They're probably not going to have a lot of time for you, right? Like, because their job, again, is not to get you a full-time job. Or if you go to like some of these other companies that are huge and they have, I don't know how many clients they have, thousands of clients, or if not more. Like you say, you're just a number, right? Whereas in our program, I'm very proud of this, but I still know every single client that comes in the program personally, right? I'm still working with every single client. Personally, like, we're more of a boutique type of company,
Yeah.
but that works in your favor because we get to know every single person, and you have your own very unique situation. You have your own unique story. You have your unique like circumstances and different strengths and weaknesses, and what we choose to highlight for you might be completely different than what we choose to highlight for, say, like if one of your friends came into the program, right? Because you guys are just two totally different people. And I think like that's a level of customization and personalization that's really, really important when it comes to something like recruiting, because it's a competition, right? You're trying to stand out from everybody else. You don't want to just be one and the same, right? So I think that's why I was talking about, like, you don't have to use Wall Street Management. You can use whatever mentor you want, but just make sure that they check those two boxes, right? Make sure they have time for you, and they care enough to spend the time to give you what you need, and make sure they're qualified, right? And if you can do that, then I think you're in good. Just those people are hard to find in general, I think, in my experience at least. But that's really helpful. So you talked about after you came into Wall Street, also obviously you had an expectation coming in, right? Like, we told you we were going to do certain things if you came in. This is how the program works, so on and so forth. Then you came in and you said, your expectations didn't fall short, and I'm glad to hear that. But like, can you just kind of give people a high level overview of like, what is it about the program that was most helpful for you? Because the one common question we get from a lot of people is like, why don't you just do this on your own? Or like, in fact, like recently there was a Wall Street Oasis post, right? And then everyone's like, oh, this is a scam because the guy is just probably, like, I read one comment, I kind of started laughing. He's like, Sam's probably just telling you to come in, and he'll tell you to use LinkedIn, and he'll give you some cookie cutter templates, and he'll tell you to read the 400 questions guide, and then he'll charge you thousands of dollars. And I was like, right, if that was all I was doing, then I think people would be pretty pissed off at me, right? Like, I would be out of business at this point, right? So like, can you give people like a high level overview of like, what is it actually about this program that made life easier for you or helped you get a better outcome than you could have gotten on your own? Because you have access to Google, right? You had access to the 400 questions guide. You have all of these things. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, I think that's I mean, there's so many things that come into my mind, but I think I'll just drop two things here. I think the first thing that's so important is really the reliability factor of things. There's so many things on the internet, there's so many things that you could be hearing from your friends. But then once you're enrolled in this program, and then you do have all the resources that you need, plus maybe like just your hard work that's expected, for everybody to put in. Kind of in the back of your mind, you kind of think, hey, like I have a pretty very safe cushion. I have like a really good springboard for me to go to wherever. Just having that feeling to kind of, navigate with you throughout the entire recruiting season is going to be different versus somebody else who's just, maybe if you're from a lesser, you know, target background, or if you're from a more non-traditional background, just having that feeling with you makes a lot of difference and give you a lot of confidence. And to be honest, I think one of the most important thing for banking and recruiting especially is to present your confidence to people. So I think the other thing really is also the efficiency you'll be having when you are in this program versus if you are not. And I think like, for example, if you were to find this information online, of course you could, Google every single term that you find in a 400 guide to see if you don't understand it, and then try to, teach yourself the concepts. And it's good, if your school teach some relevant classes, but I don't think, anywhere really is there a program that ties up the entire thing so perfectly as Sam's videos do. And then like it did save me a lot of time. And then so like even a 400 guide, sometimes they have a lot of information that is not going to be covered by banking interviews. But then I think that has to do something with either like Sam was in the industry before, or because he has so many clients coming back to reports back to the program, like he really knows what's covered, what's not covered. And then even if with some of the, tricky questions that tend to be asked during by boutique banks, if you do have that foundational knowledge, then I don't think it's very hard for you to, twist it around. So I do think, it provides you, it's kind of like, a really good way to teach you algebra, and then you go on to apply that to elsewhere. So those are the two things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, those are great points. It's like reliability and efficiency. I mean, for something like investment banking recruiting, where the timeline is so condensed and things happen so quickly, like if you think about it, you realize you want to do banking end of freshman year, and then recruiting pretty much started like halfway through sophomore year. So
yeah, like I would just say like I even consider myself to be pretty lucky, but nowadays like when I when I after I was done recruiting, and then like there were some freshmen coming to ask me about stuff, and then we already helped a kid to get into sophomore programs, with the more prevalence of the sophomore programs coming in. I would even say more and more freshmen could be benefiting from the program. I think before, I mean, most of us are probably sophomores coming in.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right. Most people, I think it's kind of a bell curve. Like we get the most sophomores, and then like maybe the second most is like juniors, and then like freshmen and seniors, they either think like, oh, it's too early for me to come in, or oh, it's too late for me, right? But the reality is, like you said, recruiting is actually happening earlier and earlier now. And a lot of these big banks who they have, especially if you're, female or you qualify for diversity programs, like they have these like freshman summer internships, they have sophomore summer internships. Like there's basically no such thing as starting too early anymore when it comes to banking recruiting, right? And it's like I've never had a client come to the program and tell me, oh my God, Sam, I feel like I have so much time. Like, I think I'm just going to take it slow. Like I've never met anyone who says that. And so it's just like the name of the game is efficiency. And it's almost like you're running a race against your competition. And you're trying to see who can get the most done between now and when the recruiting deadlines are, right? And whoever can get the most done in terms of whether it's getting relevant experience on their resume, to networking, to prepping their behavioral and technical answers, like those are the people who are going to have the most successful outcomes, right? Because they're more prepared. And so I think the efficiency point is huge. I'm really glad you brought that up. I guess if we, obviously, as people can already tell, like you ended up having a pretty successful outcome, but like along the way, like how many interviews did you have to go through before you got your first offer?
Yeah, I actually, like if you were talking, like I'm just gonna say like I'm in a very good position. I think I was definitely very, very lucky. I think part of it is also given that, because I joined the program so early, I had so much time to nail all right technicals. So, while a lot of my, other people that I'm seeing, they study their technicals over winter break or even late, your sophomore year, first summer, I had the luxury to use that time to do networking aggressively. And because of that, my ability to kind of connect with people, to drop on conversations were a lot better than, if you compare to somebody who, had their first time interview or networking starting by sophomore or second semester. So I think because of that, when I first did, I did 3 super days in general, and then I did a number of, other interviews at other places, but I would just say, like, for all of them, I all passed on. So yeah, like my first super day and a second super day, I got offers, and I was like, okay, like maybe I should consider more. And then I participated in recruiting. Well, I continued my recruiting, and then I stopped right. I had my first third super day with a Bulge Rocket Bank. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm very happy, and I don't want to do any more. Um, yeah, like to be like, when I was first doing interviews, I thought it was very intimidating, but more and more so, I wasn't intimidated by it. So coming back to, I think really having your confidence and having, somebody at your back.
Yeah. So you ended up going through 3 super days. You got all 3 offers. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2 of those were with bulge bracket banks, right? So you got 2 bulge bracket bank offers. Another one was like a middle market bank, if I'm not mistaken, right? And you got those offers around like what time of the year?
It was very early. It was definitely within, I would even say pre-first round. That was around March, April-ish. I believe that's also where a lot of the other diversity candidates get offers. Yeah.
So you had 3 offers secured by like March, April-ish of sophomore year before you went into the summer, basically.
Yeah, that's essentially what every single bank is doing. So like if you are, I would say, a junior starting, you gotta be networking much, much, much more aggressively.
Right. So, I mean, we're recording this now, it's mid-August. So basically you've been done for about 4 months, which is super nice, I'm assuming, because I know a lot of people in your year who are currently still going through the recruiting process. And we all know, let's be honest, even though I do this for a living, like recruiting is not fun, right? Like no one enjoys going through the recruiting process. Like you want to be done as quickly as possible. And also, not to mention, typically a lot of the better offers get handed out first, right? Like the longer it takes you to actually secure an offer, a lot of times you're moving downstream to smaller and smaller banks, and that means you get deal experience that's maybe a little bit worse, compensation is a little bit lower, exit opportunities is not as good. And so like that's where the urgency is. Like that's why time is of the essence, right? So like being done by before you even finish sophomore year, I think that's an amazing outcome, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Like I even know people who kind of sacrifice a lot of academic stuff for recruiting. So I would say, just the earlier and then the more confident you have as this process, the more you're able to balance other areas in your life as well.
That's true. That's true. Because you guys are students, right? Like recruiting is almost like a full-time job when you're going through it. And maybe you have to like put your schoolwork to the side, your GPA drops a little bit. And it's like the sooner you can be done with that and get back to school, keep your grades up, like that's better for you in the long run too. Right. So that's a great point. Let me ask you one last question. If you kind of like think back to the very beginning of this process for you, now that you're out here on the other side, right? You made it out to the other side. What's one piece of advice that maybe you wish someone had given you at the very beginning? Like for some of our listeners now who are just starting out, like what's one thing that you wish someone had told you that, again, maybe would have made your life a lot easier? Although it sounds like it was pretty smooth for you, but better maybe, like what's something in hindsight that you're like, I wish I knew that.
I think it's definitely related to networking because I started networking pretty early and I had a pause. That was when I realized, hey, like I probably don't really need to start that early. But even so, I would just say the biggest thing is to stay organized because you're going to be having so much information coming into, whether it's technical or just people-based information, or you're going to hear recruiters say this or say that. I would just say like have a really organized system. Either you organize it by Excel, or you just got to put things on your radar for most of the times, right? And then you got to make sure like if you have space to dedicate, recruiting to be pretty much your top priority, I would say. So like I don't think I was very good at organizing a lot of things, but I use, over time, I just stick to a very traditional method. But, even if this might be something, Sam, like you can further help the students, is to maybe there's like, kind of like a better Excel template that maybe most people can create, so that would be something very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I actually do have something in mind for that I've been meaning to teach people, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So I got to add that to the program. Thank you for the reminder. I know you're done anyway, so it doesn't really help you, but it'll help the other people after you.
I mean, I'm sure like I think for most of the parts, I would just say like, really just be diligent about things. Like if you say something you would do, just, and always be responsive too. I think like Sam mentioned that somewhere in the video. And then like stick to Sam's modules. They're very helpful. And then get them finished early on. So, and also the more you can, the other thing is really like contribute back to the program, because there are people who are, they have helped you before, or, they're stuck and then you want to help them back. It helps you to, lend some credibility, because essentially I think the industry is very small. Like somebody that I helped in the program ended up getting into the second round of the firm that I'm going to be joining, and then he took that offer. So we're actually going to be coworkers.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I know. So that's pretty exciting. So I would just say like help people there and here if you can, and give it back. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good note to end on, because that is probably one of my favorite things about Wall Street Mastermind is the community, right? Like I know I just tagged you in Slack today because someone else was asking a question about one of the firms that you got an offer from, one of the 3 firms. And I was like, oh, I know Isabelle got an offer here. Let's have them talk, right? And then you were very happy to talk to the person, which obviously I'm sure you're super appreciative. But like that's going back to what you said at the very beginning. We're coming full circle now. It's like, especially for someone like you who maybe went to a non-target school, maybe there's not like an entire finance ecosystem at your school, where you're not surrounded by all these students who know exactly what needs to be done. And where do you go to get that type of, like, put yourself in that type of environment? And it's like, this is that environment, right? And people in the program, you would think that it would be this very cutthroat competitive thing where I don't want to help you out because then you might take my job. But actually what we found is that people are very willing to help each other out, because hey, who knows? You help this person one day and now he's your coworker, and in the future, maybe he'll help you with something else. And it's just a very small world. And I think like it's a lot of times it's more important is who you know rather than what you know, right? A lot of the most successful people I know really, really believe in that. It's like your network is your net worth. And so like you meet some really great people in this program. That's another benefit that people don't think about a lot. But guys, like if you're listening to this and you feel like, hey, maybe you're in a similar situation that Isabelle used to be in, maybe you go to a non-target school, maybe you don't have a lot of people around you who can help you out. Maybe you have the work ethic, but you just need a little bit of guidance. But also you don't want to just join any program. You want to join one that has been proven to work time and time again and has a lot of evidence that they can show you that this does work. Then I want to encourage you guys to reach out to our team. You can book a free strategy session with us to start, where we'll actually try to learn more about your situation, like what kind of banks are you trying to get into, what are some of your challenges, what do you actually need help with, and then based on what you tell us, we'll let you know very honestly if that's something we can help you with or not. And sometimes it's not, to be honest, but like if we can help you, we're absolutely would be honored to help you, and we can walk you through what that might look like, right? So it's a free call. There's no obligation whatsoever. If you want to book it, you can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street's abbreviated to ST, so it's wall, ST, mastermind.com/apply. And we look forward to talking to you, all right? So with that said, Isabelle, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Obviously, super happy for you on all the amazing success that you were able to achieve, and obviously super well deserved. And looking forward to seeing how you do this upcoming summer at your firm, and obviously for full time as well. So definitely let's stay in touch and don't be a stranger. And you're always part of the family.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for all the hard work and efforts.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure. So guys, that'll be it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. All right, talk soon. Bye.